Hey everybody, welcome back to Down and Dirty Modding. Today we are continuing with our CPU loop installation. Now last time we put the block on the CPU and the motherboard, and this time we are going to be working on hooking our reservoir up, or at least mounting it. We won't get into the tubing and the wiring, or real in depth with it. So there's a lot to cover here, so let's just jump into it. The first thing we're going to do is look at this reservoir. Now this is a NeoChanger from Enermax. They were nice enough to supply me with this so I could check it out. And it's a pretty nice reservoir. It's their 300 milliliter version, which amounts to about 150 millimeter tall reservoir normally. Comes with a few different mounts. So you've got the horizontal mounts that I have set up, and it also comes with a vertical mount, so you can mount it on the floor of your case. That's not going to work for us though, because we have a fan opening right there. As far as what it is, it's just a nice clear reservoir. It's got two outlets, or two inlets on the top. One of them does have a tube that dips down into the fluid to keep you from getting that running water sound, which is pretty handy. The other one will be used for our fill. It has an outlet on the bottom, which all D5s have, and I think this is a D5. I'm not like 1000% positive, but if I had to guess, it's a D5 for one of those variants. So our outlet's down here. Let's see, this comes with a RGB LED setup on it, so I believe this ring lights and lights up all your fluid. And then also it comes with a LCD display for the speed on your pump, which is all controlled by a remote for the most part, and I'll get into that in a minute. Let's see, what else can we talk about? The brackets, the only problem I have with them, this top one moves, which is really nice, but the bottom one, the way it's set up, it only sets up on two sides, this side or this side, and then the vertical mount has tabs that use both those, but flipping that one way or another is not going to matter. But this horizontal mount, flipping that changes where everything points, and also you can't make it to where this LCD display points out the side of the case. It can only point towards the front of the case or the back of the case, and that kind of sucks. Hate to say it, but I wish they'd move their outlet, say on the front, up here on one of these angles, to where we could have another tab in the back to mount this saying this direction instead of having to mount it sideways. So, but you know, it'll still work. You won't be able to see that display, and it really isn't important to me per se, because I don't really go by the speed of the pump. I generally set it up by how fast or how loud it is. I've noticed that there's not a whole lot of difference in loud cooling ability versus like when it's quiet and how much it can cool. I'm sure maybe there's a slight difference, but you're still just moving water across a heat sink and dumping heat out of radiators. So you know, the speed of the water that we're working with really isn't going to be a huge thing. So my use of the variable pump speed will be in making sure that it's quiet and not annoying. So, like I said, that's how this is going to go in there. Let's look at some of the stuff that this comes with. Or actually, let's look at the wiring real quick. Now, it does have the standard two-wire power. So we've got a 12 and a common that runs to a SATA power connector. I'm probably going to cut these off and sleeve this wire and just hook it directly up into my power supply through one of the modular inputs. So that's what we're going to do with that, but you can't just plug this into a SATA connector and you're good. There's also two other wires that normally you wouldn't have on a reservoir. You might every now and then get a PWM for the pulse width signal. This does not have that since it's controlled by the remote. What this has is an RGB connector to hook to your motherboard if it's capable. So any of you with the newer motherboards, you can take this, run it over to that 4-pin connector, and you can tie the lighting on this into your motherboard or into your system. I think you could also tie this into those aftermarket RGB LED strip setups, with the little controller, because it is a 4-pin, 4-wire setup. So basically any RGB setup should be able to run this okay. If you don't have that, Enermax gives you this other wire, and what this is a lead for the RGBs to tie into the remote control system. So you plug that in there, and now your LEDs are controlled by the remote that comes with the reservoir. So, and this has all the, you know, pick different colors, make them flash, whatever. It also has your pump speed, which increases from what, 1,500 to 4,000, and it's got 500 RPM jumps that are standards, and then you can also adjust that up and down 150 RPM at a time. So you can adjust your RPM and then all your color through this. So that's pretty neat. One nice thing I do like about this little remote is that it comes in this nice little silicone sleeve, so like your phone cases, and get back on there. It's got magnets on it, so when you're done using it, you stick it to your case. That's pretty slick. There's nothing like losing something to control part of your system, so I do like that. And I wonder if there's any way of controlling the pump speed manually. That'd be my next question, because once the battery goes out on that, or you lose that, is there a way to change the speed on this pump without having to have that remote? That would be something worth finding out. I am curious about that now that I've thought about it. Let's put that back in there. So what do you get with this whenever you pull it out of the box? Well, it comes with the vertical mount installed, which is easy enough. 4 screws, that comes off. 2 of those screws screw the horizontal mount back on it. You get some rubber pads for silencing it. You get some mounting hardware, a couple of wire ties, keep all your wires kind of straight. A wrench, which I have no idea what it does. I'm thinking it deals with the pump somehow. Something about the pump in here probably uses this wrench. And then it also comes with this jumper for your 24 pin. This is handy because when we're starting this up, we're going to want to power this without powering the rest of the system, because basically if you did, you would be putting power to your CPU without any cooling on it at all. So what you do is you unplug all your power, VGA, motherboard, CPU, save as everything. Just pull all that off, plug this into your 24 pin. We can plug our power into our reservoir and operate the power supply all by itself. This jumper is that signal wire that tells the PSU if something's plugged in. So very nice. Nice to have this included with everything. So that's kind of the overview. If you have any questions about this that I can probably answer, remember, probably, I have not taken it apart or figured out what's in it. So keep them reasonable. But put them down in the comments, and if you want to know what are the dimensions or any, I don't know, whatever. Put them in the comments and I'll try to answer them. But now we need to go ahead and get this put in the case. Basically, what we're going to do is figure out where we want to mount it, and then we're going to drill 3 holes, because there's 2 on the bottom bracket, 1 on the top. That way we can mount it with screws into our motherboard tray. So you'll notice that I've already put chicken scratches on our tray from trying to figure out where we wanted to mount it. So what I'll do is I'll explain what I've done. So the last time when we put our CPU block on, we marked out the edge of our motherboard, and that lets us know how far it goes out into the case, and also where important wires are going to be that are going to be in the way. So we've got that marked out. We've also marked out the end of our graphics card, because we don't want that to be in the way. Definitely don't want to put the reservoir in and then all of a sudden have the graphics card hit it. That would not be good at all. So we've marked the end of it out, and we've marked out our radiators that are coming back from the front. And that gives us this space right here that we can mount the reservoir in without being in the way of anything else. That's very important. And I also did make sure when I put it in that this outlet is going to come off behind the CPU, or not behind the CPU, behind the GPU. I made sure that it wasn't going to run into the GPU when it was in, because you don't want to have to try to figure out how to wrap it around. And actually the GPU will sit out here, so we'll slide behind it real easy. So that's going to work out great. So what I did was mark out the mounting locations basically by finding the center line. This top one goes to the center line. This bottom one is like 36 millimeters to the side of the center or something like that. So that's all I did, was just measure the distance, divide by 2, go off my center line for each side of those. Now what we're going to do is pull out a drill a couple of holes, and their mounting hardware is a little short for what I'm going to do. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and drill these and tap these for M4 and just mount this directly to my tray. I wanted to go M3 with the inserts like I used on everything else, but M3s would not fit very well with these hole openings. So we'll do it with M4, drill holes, tap them, screw this bad boy in there, and we should have her set up. Okay, so we've got everything marked off in here. So our hole for our top mount, our hole for our bottom mounts. We're going to go ahead and take our drill bits and tap for M4, and handy tip, tape them up and write on them what they are, that way you don't lose the bit. I always try to do that. I am going to make sure I hand tap these because acrylic can get kind of funny running a drill through it with trying to tap it, so I don't want my reservoir falling off at random times. So we're going to hand tap that to make sure that's the best we can get it. We're going to go ahead and get that chucked up, and we're going to drill a hole, or a 3. Always safety glasses. I'm taking it kind of easy because I don't want to break out the backside of my acrylic. I don't want to have to deal with that. The nice thing about that top hole is, as long as it's on the center line and pretty close to where we want it, this moves. So it should be really easy to adjust. So that won't be a big thing. Let's go ahead and tap these out. Okay. So that's done. I'm going to go ahead and pull this paper off, at least some of it. Because I want to know. I think it's going to look really cool, especially with the reservoir mounted up. I will have to take the tray out to get the rest of this because some of this sits behind a part of the case. But I'll do that later. Right now I'm impatient to see what it's going to look like. So we are going to, when we mount this top bracket because it needs to get screwed in first. Make sure our logos are well, one of the logos is going to be the right way up. I guess it really doesn't matter. Okay, so M4 buttons. Okay. All right, and since I've used stainless on that one, I'll go ahead and drop some stainless on these others, I think. No, because those are too long. God damn it. Oh, it's pretty good. Maybe we'll just go all stainless on this build. That'll look pretty good with the chrome on the bottom for the feet. So let's go put these up. Now we're going to put the reservoir in and just slip it into this top bracket. Oh, my measuring sucks. God damn. That's horrible, Dave. I might have to adjust these out a little bit to make them, yeah. God damn it. So, I screwed up and drilled my holes too wide, so apparently my measuring is not very good. So I've got to take this bottom bracket off and adjust it a bit to make it fit. So we'll probably take a little break while I do that. Nobody wants to see that. Well, there we go, guys. We've got her installed. That's the bad thing about working in millimeters. I mean, half a millimeter might as well be a mile. I had to widen up my bracket a little bit to make everything work. So measure twice, cut once, and then take the part and set it over the top of it to make sure your marks are going to be right and save yourself the trouble of trying to fix something later. But looks good. I think it's going to work out really well for us. I'm curious to see how loud it is and when it runs. I mean, it's a D5, so it'll have a little bit to it, but it shouldn't be horribly bad. Next time we are going to work on our radiators. We're going to get that bracket built, which will be a little more involved. Screwing radiators to things is pretty easy, but making a bracket that looks like something is a little more difficult. So I'll put some thought into that, and I guess I'll see you all next week. Head out and check out Enermax and their NeoChanger, and go out and mod something, guys.